Tashi Delik, everyone. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Pempatun, and I'm currently serving as a Deputy Program Coordinator at Tibet House, the Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi. Good morning, respected Chief Guest, Shrimati Rajina Jaji, our esteemed guest of honor, Shri Abhijit Khadarji, our keynote speakers, Mr. Harshvardhan Umerji, our Director, Venerable Geshe Dorjit Amdullah, all chairpersons, speakers, and both our online and offline participants. Welcome back to the first session of today's conference, which focused on facing the crisis, climate collapse, and ecological breakdown. Our planet is currently undergoing a severe environmental crisis, largely driven by human activities, overconsumption, and ecological neglect. Rising temperatures, extreme weather conditions, and biodiversity loss pose serious threat to both nature and humanity. Immediate action and renewed collective sense of environmental responsibilities are essential for restoring ecological balance and ensuring a sustainable future. With that being said, I would now like to warmly welcome our chairperson of this session, Shri Abhijit Hardarji, Director of International Buddhist Confederation, IBC, New Delhi. I would also like to invite our distinguished speakers for this session to kindly come up on this dais and take your respective seats. Yes. Mr. Harsh Vardhanji, uh, uh, Mr. Rishikesh Sharanji. Yes, sir. Mr. Rishikesh Saranji, former Chief Commissioner, Dr. Radhima Solanki ji, is currently with the Worldwide Founder for Nature and currently pursuing PhD in carnivore ecology from the Forest Research Institute located in Dehradun. Ms. Dechin Bamola, a research fellow, Environment and Development Desk from Tibet Policy Institute. And then we have Dr. Sendin Chostekla, Assistant Professor, Senior Skill, Campus Law from Faculty of Law in Delhi University. Before we begin, please allow me to briefly introduce our session's chairperson. Shri Abhijit Hardar is the Director General of International Buddhist Confederation and a former Special Secretary to the Government of India. Over a distinguished 37 years career, he served in Indian mission several countries, representing India in multilateral forums and working across sectors including high technology, defense, culture, media, and information. As Director General of IBC, Mr. Abhijit Hardar has led numerous initiatives to foster global Buddhist unity. He played a key role in establishing India's first Buddhist monastery in Lumbini, inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. He also organized the 23rd Shanghai Cooperation Organization Conference on Sri Buddhist Shared Buddhist Heritage in collaboration with the Minister of External Affairs, involving participation from 12 countries. With that, may I hand over to our chairperson.
So this is a topic of enormous relevance. Of course, we all heard the other speakers at the beginning, the inaugural session, and a lot of valuable advice and a lot of valuable content was there, evidently in these speeches. I won't go into the details, but I think we should start off, given the fact that there is a shortage of time. So the topic being facing the crisis, climate collapse, and ecological breakdown. Now, this we are facing a situation. We are really at the crossroads today. This is a very desperate and dire situation, and we can talk about it. We can discuss about it. There are various elite intellectual platforms across the world. A lot has happened over the years, but I think rightfully, as Professor Saab was mentioning in between, that the action on ground has to be visible, and that's why I said that probably during our lifetime we will not be able to see that happen. Only the youngsters might be lucky to see that day. Uh, uh, every one of us are responsible for it, but deep down, I think unless you know the core essence of the problem, unless you know the relevant factors which are responsible for this situation, it is difficult to cope with these challenges. So that is why we have experts from different background here. It will be great to listen to them. So we'll start off with Mr. Hrishikesh Saranji, former Chief Commissioner. Sir, I would like to start with you. I think you can take on first, and then.
Good morning to all of you. Respected Venerable Devji Danturji, Ranjana Jaji, Mr. Haldar and Harsh Umreji, and friends. What happened that my mother transformed from here to here? What went wrong? Who is responsible for this transformation from here to here? Humans. We are all alike. This thing, if you ask a neurologist, he will say that this is all alike in everybody. Hardware. One side is responsible for emotions, the other side for logic. Wonderful. But what about the software inside? Is the software also the same in everybody? If the software were the same, then how on this planet Earth, somebody 2600 years ago only saw an old man, a sick man, and a dead man, and he said, I have seen enough. Just as in the house, when we make rice, we take out one piece of rice, and Ranjana ji will find out whether the rice is cooked or not. He found out what was the problem of mankind. One person, one old man, one sick man, and one dead man. And on this earth itself, few years ago, we had Osama bin Laden. So is the software same here? Is the software same here? No, friends. In this CPU, hardware is the same, but software is not the same. And unfortunately, in this software, no antivirus was put. So the virus came and automatically transformed my mother from this to this. And we are now crying, lamenting. Friends, the virus is in the minds. Environmental pollution is not so important as compared to the mental pollution. If we can take care of the mental pollution, environmental pollution will be taken care of. So, where is the problem? Real problem lies somewhere else. We are not interested in that real problem. Buddha in the Dhammapad, in the first and the second Gatha only of the Yamak Vag, he says, mind is the forerunner for everything. Mind is the forerunner for everything. Everything arises in this universe out of mind. If one pollutes his mind, works with a polluted mind, impure mind, suffering follows in his life, just as in a wheel cart, the hoof of the bull is followed by the line drawn by the wheel of the cart. Similarly, in the second Gatha, he says, if we don't work with the polluted mind, if we work with the pure mind, happiness follows in our life just as our shadow follows us. We are sitting here, we don't see our shadow. When we go out, the shadow follows. So, and what did Mr. Haldar say? I have not been to any one of the Buddhist countries. I have not been to those countries, but he mentioned, he himself has mentioned that to the Buddhist countries wheresoever he has gone, he has found that the people there are more respectful to the Mother Earth and they are more akin to being a human being. So what does it say? We have to be Buddha-like people. And so the Buddha's teaching, which sort of, if we can say that it is a product. Buddha's teachings, if it is brought to the society, then probably there is some hope for the mankind. Buddha's teachings. I look at this issue from marketing point of view. Now, if we want to launch a product in the market, say a toothpaste. So, to begin with, the toothpaste should be better than any other brand available in the market. Then only it is going to withstand the competition in the market. How does the Buddha's teaching stand as compared to the other brands available in the society? Friends, if we look at the life of the Buddha, he didn't travel more than some states, present states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and northern India. His visit was only confined to northern India. As on today, nearly 50 crores of the people of this world, which comes to around 6.6% of the population. Some of the countries have more than 90% population which are Buddha's followers. How it happened? How it happened that it went to so far these countries? It was not sent by sword. My knowledge is that only King Ashoka, he sent his daughter and son to Sri Lanka, and Buddha's teachings have traveled far and wide because of their own strength. They didn't need crutches. The teachings didn't need swords. They are so powerful themselves that just as a perfume comes out here, it will spread automatically everywhere. No effort is required. Look at the teachings of the Buddha. First and second Gathas I have told you. Look at the third and fourth. He says, he beat me, he abused me, he misbehaved with me. If we keep on remembering all this in the life, enmity will never disappear. Yes, true. And then in the fourth Gatha he says that if we don't remember this, enmity will disappear. And the fifth Gatha, which is again very important, is hatred will never cease by hatred. Hatred will cease only by love, compassion, and goodwill. So where is the conflict? Where is the quarrel? Buddha's teaching is going to stand for eternity of its own strength. So there is no question of any competition in the marketability of this product, which is known as Buddha's teaching. So my area of market is the Indian population, the study on the basis of which I am speaking today. The product is Buddha's teachings. And I think the market in India is it has the worth because it has been tested all over the world and it mixed to common sense also. Common sense. And Buddha himself tells, at the entrance of the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, the most prestigious scientific organization in this country, which was established much prior to the IITs and all. At the entrance gate of the administrative office is written the Kalam Sutta, which says that don't believe something only also because the Buddha says so. Accept it if it is reasonable, it is beneficial, and the other criteria. So Buddha's teachings, the product is there. Now marketability. My area of marketability is Indian population. How to ensure that it is accepted by 140 crores of people in India? I have a strong feeling that there are some misconceptions, prejudices, which are in the minds of the people. I have spoken to my friends, their wives, very senior bureaucrats' wives, and I have tried to convince them that Buddha ke baare mein thoda sa padhiye. What did they say? A person who leaves his wife and child, such a irresponsible person, why should I make him as a role model? Why should I make him as a role model? And they refused. My friends, my college friends' wives, they also retired as principal, chief commissioner. Bade achhe log the, no problem. This is no question. How can I follow somebody who is so irresponsible? So this prejudice is already there. Have you tried to understand what was the truth? No. People in this country, we have not tried to understand what was the truth. Or you look at the Sinhalese literature. See, in Sinhalese literature, it is mentioned. I have a book, I have translated a book from Sinhalese. It was from Sinhalese to English, English to Hindi. In Sinhalese, there is a poem in which Yashodhara wishes all the best to her husband. In Lalit Vistara, which sir had mentioned to me long ago, in Lalit Vistara, Prince Siddharth thinks to himself, look here, I am going to leave the palace. It will be a great discourtesy and cruelty to my parents if I don't tell them. And so he goes to his father. And look here, he goes to his father. His father knows his mind. He says, son, you can ask me any boon you want, and I'm ready to give you. But don't leave the palace. The prince says, then give me four promises. I will not be old. I will not die. I will be able to live with all of you. When he tells all these things, the father says, son, how can I give you all these blessings, boons? Nobody can give you. Then Siddharth says, why don't you give me the blessing to go? And he gives the blessing. Now, the other story, the other side, how Yashodhara, his wife, and Siddharth were born on the same day. And they were married at the age of 16. Siddharth left for the forest at the age of 29. This means they were together for 13 years together. Is it possible that in 13 years the wife is not able to understand the mind of her husband? When the husband goes, sees an old man, a sick man, and a dead man, and comes and sits down in pensive mood. How can it be possible? We were mentioned about the book from the Vietnamese monk who is a master in mindfulness, Thich Nhat Hanh. Look at his book, Old Path and White Clouds. In that book, he mentions that both of them, husband and wife, were great social service. They used to do the social work. And Yashodhara and Siddharth met for the first time only through the social work. So they both knew each other. And in that book, it is mentioned that when she had the inkling that if he is determined to go, he will go. So on that fateful night when he was to go, she had already told the horse keeper, Chandak, to keep the horse ready in the night. And in that book mentions that she had taken out some of the garments and kept it outside on the chair. And she wanted not to meet him, Siddharth, at the time of departure so that the parting should not be so painful. Who is there to explain all this, and why don't we explain to them why this type of misunderstanding is prevailing in the society? Anybody I talk to, he says, क्यों हम बुद्ध को पढ़ें? क्यों पढ़े ऐसा irresponsible आदमी को हम क्यों पढ़ें? I have no answer. And so this is required to be set right in this country. This is required to be set right in the country. Second thing, we look at the old Indian traditions in a totally different way. Why should we? If you look at the Buddhism and the Indian traditions, both of them, there is a huge similarity between them. Law of incarnation, same. Reincarnation, law of karma, same. There is some people object when they talk to me this. Our concept is based, Indian thought is based on Atman. And Buddha denies Atman. So why should we accept Buddha? The entire Bhagavad Gita is based on Atman. Sure. But why don't we apply our mind to understand what the Buddha says? Nobody is ready to read. Buddha never has mentioned that Atman is not there. He also doesn't say that Atman is not there. He simply advises people to remain silent on these undesirable questions. When the disciples asked this question, one day he calls the congregation and he asks them, how does it matter to you, my dear friend, whether the Atman is there or not? You should understand that your house, your hut is on fire. Hut, our life, our hut, it is anger, jealousy, hatred. Whatsoever we had some 30, 40 years ago, same thing is there. So Buddha says your house is on fire. Better you put the fire to rest. And when somebody brings a bucket of water, I ask him, instead of extinguishing the fire, I ask, अरे आपका बाल अब तो 25 साल के हैं, आपके बाल सफेद अभी कैसे हो गए? What a nonsense. The other example the Buddha gives is of hitting an arrow. He says, an arrow has hit you. Immediately you take out the arrow. Don't ask the question, who has shot it? Whether it is made of steel or it is made of bamboo. In physics, whether it has come at 45 degrees so that the projectile is the maximum. No, man will die. So he says, don't indulge in such questions. And about Atman, what does the Buddha say? I'll give only two examples from him. Suppose in a cave, somebody claps here. The sound is heard there. So, yes, keep it here. And give me some water. Clapping is here, sound is there. He asked this question, is the sound the same? Yes, it is the same. It is from here. Is really the same? No. It is something different. So how can you say that? Whether it is the same or not? The other example he gives is about a lamp burning the whole night. Is the lamp in the morning the same as the lamp was in the evening? One answer is yes. The answer is no. So Buddha says that this life and the coming life, are they the same? Yes, because of the karma done here. Oh, so nice of you. Thank you. Thank you. Is the life here the same as the life there? Yes. Why? Because of the karma here. The life is the same. But is the life the same? No, no. How can it be? In this life I was a poor man. There I am a rich man. So these are the questions which are, he simply says that, why are you wasting your time in such frivolous questions? In Hindi he says, in Pali he says, oh, vyakt questions. Questions which are not to be asked. If I ask you a question, for which you have to give answer invariably in yes or no, what will be your answer? Have you stopped beating your wife? Give me an answer, either in yes or no. Tell me, I ask you the question, have you stopped beating your wife? Give me the answer in yes or no. Huh? It cannot be given. So, avyakt question. Unfortunately, we don't want to read what the Buddha says and blame him for everything what happens in the society. Third question, which I find people raise, Buddha to dukh ke bare mein baat karte. He talks about sorrow. He talks in the four noble truths, he talks about sorrow. We don't want to go into the details to understand what he actually wants to say and what is the solution. So my friends, my appeal to this group is that this is the time of YouTube. Buddha was also a very great management guru. I have taken up this study only getting inspired from him. He gave his teaching to 5 disciples, Dhammachak Pavattan Sutta at Sarnath. Then came Yash, a young man who became his disciple. Then his 4 friends came, so the total became 10. Then 50 more disciples came. When they became 60 monks were there, Buddha sent all these 60 monks in different directions to propagate his teachings, asking them not two people to go in one direction at all. They went in such a way that no two people should go in one direction. So he used the marketing technique whatsoever was available at that time. It is high time now that we use the present technique to set at rest the doubts which are rising, which are in our mind in India. Let me also make it very, very clear that I am not advocating. In India, we have less than 1 crore of people who are Buddhists. Less than 1% of population. Let me make it very, 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 very clear. My purpose is not to ask anybody to get converted into Buddhism. I am very, very clear about the line of demarcation. I am in for Buddha's teachings, but not at all interested in converting people to Buddhism. I am myself a Hindu. From my childhood, still today also, every day I read Bhagavad Gita, Durga Saptashati. I read all those books. But for the last 40 years, I have been giving lectures on the Buddha's teachings and studying them. So my proposal here is not to convert people to Buddhism. If you are please don't take me that way. My submission only is that here is a product, Buddha's teachings, which will solve all our problems, rest assured. I am telling you based on my personal experience of life, spread over 50 years of government service. So, based on that, and I don't believe at all in talking theoretical, because I'm greatly inspired from Buddha itself. In Gatha 19 and 20 of the Yamakvag, he says, people, if you read a lot of books and don't practice them in life, then you are like the cow keeper of somebody. You will simply take the cows to the forest and return them in the evening. You will not get anything. But if you read a little and follow them in life, then you are like the owner of the cows. You will get butter, milk, curd, everything. So he says that focus on following it in your life. And then he also gives example of the flowers. There are two types of flowers. Those which are beautiful to look, but no scent. The others are those which have beauty as well as scent. We may learn about many beautiful things in life. Read it, find it, and look here. Lessons are not only coming from the books and other traditional things. If they were coming only from them, then Kabir never went to the school. Kabir never went to the school, and there are more than 1,000 PhDs on Kabir. So, the Buddha says that if we learn, don't follow them in life, then we are like those flowers which have beauty but no scent. But if we follow them in life, then we are like those flowers which are beautiful and they have scent also. I not like that madam comes with the second slip. So I like to stop here, sir. I keep on, if I get time, I go on and on like the old LP record. And my wife says कि आपको तो एक मौका मिलना चाहिए, आप तो बंद होते ही नहीं हैं. So friends, but at the end, I like to end with a Hindi poem about Mother India. Very, very touchy. माँ का आंचल है फटा हुआ. This is about the sari being worn by Mother India. माँ का आंचल है फटा हुआ, इन दो चिथड़ों को सीना है. My mother's sari is torn and we have to sew it. देखे देता है कौन खून. Let me see who is there to give the blood for my mother to sew her sari which is torn. Deta kaun pasina, and who is there to give the time, the toil, the sweat. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Sharan Saab. Very invigorating speech of yours. I think we should request Geshe Damdulji to have a 3-hour session for where you can feel your whatever your wife is not allowed, we'll allow you here.
Sir, 2 years ago, Bangladesh monastery invited me to Bodh Gaya, and I conducted sessions on Dhammapad from morning till evening for 2 continuous days. And based on this, Theosophical Society has invited me in February 2026 to conduct sessions on Dhammapad for 2 weeks. It's a very, very inspiring book. Let me tell you, my friends, if at all in life I were permitted to take only one book, I would take Dhammapad. Hota tha na? In old days, people were jailed. Our national leaders were jailed. And they were given only one book. Suppose I were put in cellular jail, Andaman, for nationalistic activities, and I'll be asked only, you will be given one book, I'll request them give me Dhammapad.
Excellent. No, I think at the end of the day, there is a relevant point which you mentioned. understanding and realizing the essence of Buddha's teachings. It's not religion. When you talk about conversion, I always tell people that there's nothing called conversion. How are you using the word conversion? You're not converting into a religion. It's a philosophy, and it has to do with brilliant science. I mean, which very rarely you find any other religion. I mean, if you use the word religion, I don't call it religion. Also, I just call it Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. Today, unfortunately, because of the huge gap we have had in India in understanding, as he's mentioned, the concept of his teachings, Buddha's teachings, the most brightest scientists and academicians who deal with mind, science, mindfulness in the world are all in American universities. You can Google and you can go to Berkeley, Harvard, Columbia, the top universities. And they are the ones who are studying all of that which Sharan Saab mentioned. And we don't have too many professors or academicians doing this research. So that's where the gap is. And it's a sad thing that he was here. His enlightenment was India, and his knowledge has gone to so many countries. And today, academicians, even now, we had a conference recently where we had some brilliant academicians from America who are researching on this subject. Come over and discuss issues about mental well-being, mental health, mindfulness, etc. A huge contribution which he did about 2,600 years back, still relevant. So thank you very much for this talk, and we'll now...
Sir, I'll just add one thing. In 1879, one book was written, Light of Asia, about Buddha. It revolutionized the thinking about the Western world about the Buddha. 140 editions were published, 140. The Christians were very, very angry with Edwin Arnold. They said that you must write about the Christ. And he was forced to write another book, The Light of the World. Nobody has seen that book, including me. And 140 editions, the first translation of that, it is in archaic English, very difficult. I did it in poetry form, Jagdaradhya Tathagat, the preface of which was written by His Holiness Dalai Lama. I translated it in Hindi, prose, English prose, and also in my mother language, Bhojpuri. Second example, Rice Davis. He was a Christian clergyman. His father said that we have to show that Buddhism is the worst religion on this earth. So he was sent to Sri Lanka. So obviously he wanted to show that Buddhism is the worst religion in this world. So he started reading Buddhism. And in the process, he got converted into Buddhism. He became a monk. And the rest is history. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. So we go to Ridhima Solanki, and her profile has been already mentioned about, but interesting aspect which I found is that she's actively engaged in tiger conservation, landscape ecology and spatial planning through her work with the National Tiger Conservation Authority, the Wildlife Institute of India. Both of them are under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So we'll hear her out.
Namaste everyone. Biodiversity loss was the topic that we were talking about, and I realize, like climate crisis, biodiversity is also at the verge of crisis. And especially because I have worked in the field of wildlife as well as biodiversity conservation for over 15 years now. We particularly, the people who have been working in this field, have particularly been affected by a term called ecological grief. Ecological grief is something that we are understanding where the loss is, what is it, where our planet is going, and that is kind of giving us a depression that, this is not right, this is not what is making us happy. So a lot of researchers or people who are laymen also, who has been very closely associated with biodiversity, say particular flower you are unable to see now, or maybe the river is no more fresh anymore. May I take this?
Please.
So I think that is the major reason why we are having something called ecological crisis. There has been a report, Living Planet report, which talks about tremendous loss our planet has suffered when it comes to wildlife. Now, mind it, I'm not saying flora and fauna. We are talking about wildlife. This is also, even if you say that more than 75% we have lost in, say, past 5 decades, yet it is an underestimate according to me. Because you can think about a loss when you know the baseline data. You can talk about big animals, large trees, but there are a lot of spiders, there are a lot of frogs, which we are still discovering. So, saying something as a loss does not make sense because it's cumulatively we are losing a lot of animals and plants which have not even registered, we have not even counted their breathing yet. You know, they have not even come out of light to public eyes. So, calling it a biodiversity loss, even if it is a crisis right now, 75%, it's still underestimate. So why I say it is an underestimate also, because whenever I ask anyone about biodiversity, they mostly talk about a particular animal comes in their mind, particular tree comes in their mind, or maybe a butterfly or something like that. Biodiversity goes much more beyond that. It's about the interaction between each and every individual that is existing in a small space you are talking about. So, considering getting the statistics of how much loss that particular piece of land is happening is very difficult. It is actually very difficult. So, what we do is we mostly talk about the big animals, the charismatic animals, which everyone has seen or probably became popularized in because of the Bollywood, Hollywood, or some royal families. And most of the time, we talk about those animals. We don't talk about the biodiversity loss as a whole. So, when we talk about the losses we are having, humans are definitely doing it, but how they are doing it, there are different ways of talking about the reason of loss. So, one is definitely the individual activity, even the individual activity that we have been talking about for a really long time, that we should switch to toothbrushes, bamboo made toothbrushes, and not use plastics anymore. So, those also account for the individual activity. But when it comes to biodiversity or when it comes to animal, I'll talk about one of the major animal which was lost from India recently. You all must be knowing because it has come into reintroduced in India recently. So cheetah was something, one animal which was actually hunted down. It was hunted for sports, not just hunted down for food. You know, you are killing an animal for eating, I can still understand that. It's a digestible thing to understand. But you are killing an animal just for the sport's sake doesn't make any sense. It is properly, you can say, it's a luxury for which you have lost an animal. There was, you can see the this miniature art, I'm sorry about this, but you can see the Mughal art. A lot of Mughal arts will be having this sports, talking about the sports. Some of the documentation also says that in Akbar court there were some 500 cheetah which were captured and kept for this sport. And especially it was harmful because in captivity cheetah cannot breed. It finds it very difficult to breed in the captivity. So indirectly also you are killing the cheetah from the planet. So this was one individual activity which caused the loss. Some are the global activities. When you see the islands, especially the Southeast Asian island, Indonesia, a lot of animals are there which are there. You know, they have been found as a major habitat in that particular area. But then talk about the plantations. There have been a lot of people have must have known about palm oil plantations, which were destroying the orangutan habitat in these countries. So these kind of things also lead. It is a global activity. You cannot blame a person, but it's like consumer driven. Someone is saying that in the market we are developing, we are going to do more plantation of a certain uh, crop, and that is coming because of the demand from the people. It is not one person choice. It is like everyone is a part of such a kind of thing. And when you do such plantation, you are destroying the habitat, particular trees or food that these animals survive on in that island is gone, because you have introduced something else. You are over harvesting something else and destroying the area. And this also causes one of the thing, like COVID, everyone keeps on talking about how COVID happened and everyone was feeling at a loss. Much more zoonotic disease are coming into picture because we are encroaching these areas where the barrier between human and wildlife is now diminishing a lot. It has become very porous. Wild animals are also getting infected because of our domestic animals, and vice versa also. So I think it is one of the reason of a lot of biodiversity crisis is also because of the global activity. Climate change, everyone keeps on talking about climate change. Yes, it is a thing, not like we are looking forward to it. It has already established itself. Climate change is happening so fast. Uh, some areas are affected more, but surprisingly we keep on talking about our country is having so much of pollution. But there has a recent study talks about it, that globally people are suffering much more warmer climate in their area. The transition is much more uh, drastic compared to India. India or Southeast Asian countries are majorly agro-pastoral area. So because of the river system, because of the agricultural landscape, our area, our land is warming a bit slower compared to US and other areas. So that is also one of the study which is talking about the habitat. You keep on talking about climate change, about air and everything. The air is getting polluted because of the land use changes, or because of the we are not being very respectful uh, about the existing system, the crop mosaic that we have been following, the lifestyle that we have been following. So this is one Hawaiian honey creeper. Its habitat is on the higher altitude habitat it exists. And as the temperature started moving, the food started depleting, the mosquitoes started coming at the higher elevation, and so the zoonotic diseases also started transferring. And very unfortunately, a lot of such honey creepers are now declared extinct because of climate change. The other thing that I was talking about, the reason for biodiversity loss is definitely the land use change. This is one of the area in Assam, Guwahati. Most of the people must be knowing. It's a big city which has been expanding at the border of Brahmaputra river. And this is the one particular habitat very crucial for tiger and elephant to be moving around. When you do a land use change, suddenly a lot of we know how to move around. We have people coming to help us over if we are sitting on the top of our houses, and we have someone coming up, a neta will be coming and distributing food for us and doing some all sorts of things, helping us out from the disaster that has happened. But these animals don't have that. They have been traditionally following that this is the season when the water rise will happen, Brahmaputra will be rising, so I need to go to a particular area, I need to go uphill. They have that instinct. It's not like we are supposed to tell them that move from this side to that side. No, nothing like that. These animals have been traditionally understanding from where the natural disaster is coming and which area we should be going. But if you put a big household over there, if you put a big oil refinery in the middle of it, if you put a road, expand 6 lane, 8 lane road, how are these animals going to cross? So that is something that we are supposed to be very, if we are saying that um, uh, it's it's kind of, right now India is promoting that hum sab inclusive hain, it's not animals, it's not humans, hum sab inclusive hain. Agar hum sab inclusive hain and we have brain, we are the ones who are bringing the policy and development, land use change, then we are supposed to be adhering to understanding that how these animals are moving also. I always believe in this quote of Mahatma Gandhi ji: world has enough for everyone's need but not for enough for everyone's greed. And that's very true, because right now our planet is suffering because some of us are just trying to hoard a lot of things which is not required. We are trying to live a lifestyle which is not required, or probably, I won't say not required, I would say that it is not, it is very detrimental for our planet. So if we are saying that so there have been study where they say that agar isi lifestyle ke hisab se chalenge, then there will be more planet, more of earth we will be needing, more times of earth we will be needing. Although India is still like 0.7 times of the earth we will be needing, but still this is what happens when you start accumulating or try to get more from the planet that it can offer. This is one of the painting I really liked. This is a tribal artist who has made this painting. And the best part about this painting, if you see the upper half, it talks about the culture, nature, how the tribals have been living. They had all the things very closely related with nature. But the lower part of the tree, below the tree, if you see, it's like our demands. We need transportation, we need, and we cannot compare in today's world with countries which are less populated, to be honest. That would not be very right. Okay, I haven't even started it. I have to end. I'm so sorry. Okay, fine. But this is one of the image which actually grasped the whole concept of it. So my when I was asked to talk about it, I said that let's not be very pessimistic and talk about all the time about what we are losing and how things are happening. So I made my study or talk of today as more or less trying to make you understand what we can do. One thing is that bring in people also when it comes to conservation. That's what we all are doing, trying to be a part of it. This is one example where community played a very good role once we started engaging with them. So there's, everyone knows about Amur falcon. It moves from China side to Africa side. It's like 22,000 kilometer cover it does. Very beautiful small bird, but it flies to a long distance. And its one stop was in somewhere in Nagaland, Pangti village especially. And there they had this habit of killing and eating um the the bird. And so they were doing it because it was a really long time they had been doing it. And once we entered into the picture, the conservationists entered into the picture, they talked about it, that see, it is going from one area to another area, it is just a visitor in your place. And then they realized slowly, a lot of people started talking about how these birds are so important in the global scenario. And since 2014 or something, there have been no hunting once they came to know about it. So the first thing is that we take it as a responsibility as a conservationist to make awareness, talk about it. It's not like you have been doing it for a really long time, any custom changes actually, but you have to show the importance of it. The other was also, so most of the example I'm giving is from the our northeastern states, but the tribals over there are actually contributing a lot on the conservation, biodiversity conservation. So there was one tribe, there is one tribe who has a very important custom of making a headgear out of the hornbill. Hornbill, most of the people know about hornbill bird. It's a big bird. So its beak and casque used to be cut and they used to make a headgear. It was a part of their custom. When conservationists started talking about it, and then we realized that they also have understood this factor that once any animal or a tree is gone from here, they will not like it also. They will also suffer from ecological grief. So, conservationists started talking to them, make them understand that your birds are depleting now. And then the fiberglass, they made a fiberglass headgear and they started using it. So, it's not like no one changes their custom. You provide them alternative, you talk about it, and imagine the guru, the village headman saying this: without symbols, how do you teach children about your culture? If there's no dhanesh, that is hornbill, left, what will I show the future generation? So this is something that everyone tries to understand and then start trying to protect and conserve, because in future you want that, right? This is also one of the Hulok gibbon. It's the only ape found in India. Its habitat reduced tremendously. And major reason is one of the, you see a small picture over there. That is the railway line which is crossing across the habitat. So now Hulok gibbon, what it does, it swings from one tree branch to another tree branch. If you bring or if you make the tree very far off from each other, so it will not be able to swing from one. No matter how much Tarzan it is, it still needs the rope to catch. So there is a railway line crossing across it. And then everyone started talking about, because railway line is also important. There are a lot of places people want to go, and that is one of the track. So it's still not moved out of the habitat, but we are trying to talk about some adaptation models so that it can cross at least. But this was not successful. Still there is going on to build some ropes and stuff like that. But developmental activities need to go hand in hand with the conservation. So here also one of the area in they talk about their landscape, their village, by saying about including the animal also. So Hulok gibbon voice or sound is a part of that landscape. You must have seen that many times. You are sitting in your house very depressed that what is happening in Delhi, nothing, no fresh air, nothing, and suddenly a koel cuckoo is calling somewhere in the background, or maybe a peacock, and suddenly your mood changes. So that is something that we have to understand, that no matter how much small it is, but it is something for our well-being also. And these people say that as long as you hear the gibbon song, you are in the landscape, you are in the, and that's why they are trying to protect it. Livelihood opportunities are less most of the time, but they are okay with not getting big developmental thing, bit of ecotourism and all, and save it. This is a very small bird which was discovered after independence, one of the bird which was discovered after independence, Bugun. And there is a community in Eagle Nest area, which is in Arunachal Pradesh. So when everyone said that this is a very important bird which has been discovered, and the landscape is getting destroyed, habitat is getting destroyed because of the logging, tree logging and everything, the people came forward. They said that it is our land. The tribals came forward and they said that it is our land, we are ready to give it, but let's start the conservation. And they took the initiative to protect that land. And in exchange, what they are getting, a bit of like the hornbill thing that I was talking about, there also a bit of money for the nest protection of the hornbill. Same way for Bugun, there is some money for protecting the bird, for protecting the land. But I'm saying that only conservationists cannot talk about it unless and until people start coming into picture and they start taking ownership of protecting that land. So it is now well protected. It's one of the beautiful sight. If anyone ever visits Eagle Nest area, go and see. It's a beautiful area where the tribals are themselves protecting the land. So we have been talking about most of the time the small one species, one habitat, limited area, which has from a larger distribution, they have come to a smaller distribution. But one, India cannot talk about biodiversity without tigers. Tigers represent every landscape of India, and every landscape means every culture, every different kind of people living in those landscape. So this habitat also, it is not possible to protect unless and until people and communities start coming into picture. So one is definitely killing the tigers is one of the thing where poaching we are trying to work on and stop poaching. But the other is habitat. Like in the beginning, when I talked about biodiversity, biodiversity is all about habitat. It is not about one species. It is not about just protecting a particular landscape. It is about the whole land as a whole. So there's lantana, which is an invasive species which has destroyed the whole habitat of most of the habitat of tiger. And when you say invasive, invasive means something coming from outside has established itself and not allowing the natives to establish. So that is something which is destroying the habitat also. Then there's Bishnois and blackbuck. You all must have heard about Salman Khan infamous Salman Khan case. Bishnois have always been known to be protecting the blackbuck, and not only blackbuck, they also understand the biodiversity we have to handle. So they participate in catching poachers as well as taking legal action and spreading awareness. And that is actually what is required. Like once you start taking ownership of the area inclusive of biodiversity in your surrounding, you start protecting it, and that's how you can scale it up to protect it throughout our planet. So I'll end this thing with one of the famous quote by Barack Obama. It's actually very true to say that it's lost. My previous generation did not take care, and now I have nothing in hand. But we are the major generation who are currently responsible for it. If we do not take, forget about how much action you are taking, but understanding the gravity of the situation is very much important. A lot of people I still meet who say, oh, climate change has been happening for a really long time. Biodiversity, yeah, we are losing animals for a really long time. They are not understanding the gravity that still there is something that we can do about it. So if uniformly in our generation everyone understands that, I think that is also good enough that we are reaching right now. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ridhima ji. I think this was a wonderful journey to a world which is not much known about, and I'm sure all of us here, especially the youngsters, would have had a nice glimpse into your specialized field. I like the way you put across, how in the Northeast, those typical examples of complete unawareness among the people about the value of the birds which are traveling thousands of miles. You also have the Siberian crane which travels from Siberia all the way. So, wherever they land, the people there are basically bothered about their eating habits, that this is this rare and unique bird which is going to have some special taste. So, and probably it has a special taste. It's coming from a different country. And for him, that's what means business. That's it. Till you reach out to them and tell them that, look, the effort made by these small birds to come 22,000 kilometers, you said, it sinks into these individuals then that, I can't touch this. I have to literally, pray to these birds. And then you mentioned about the Bishnois who, in any case, to, religiously sort of consider the black buck as something very sort of sentimental and emotional. So I guess the human animal interaction is very, very critical. The bottom line here is that. And, I think we need to be more conscious and aware of the animal world, even the small animals which you mentioned about, which we don't even bother about, the moths, the butterflies, the spiders. I mean, they're animals, they're living beings. So thank you very much to take us all through this wonderful world of yours. We now go to a third speaker, Ms. Dechen Pamo. She's going to speak on Tibet at the Crossroads, Global Climate Trench and Ecology Collapse. I mentioned this topic because the topic mentioned in the printout is different. She changed her topic. So please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. Tashtanak everyone, and thank you, Chair, for your kind introduction. And I would also like to thank Dr. Gishit Abdullah and also the entire team of Tibet House for organizing this conference. I know organizing such conferences very difficult and sometimes very tiring as well. However, I would like to thank for giving opportunity to speak about Tibet and its environment importance. So today I'll be talking about Tibet, not just as a distant land with a political issue, but as a place where the people who are on the front line of global climate crisis, and also where the future of ecosystem and culture are very deeply intertwined. And as we often hear about the global climate change and climate crisis, and also about the melting of the glaciers, we have heard a lot about the Arctic glacier melting and also the deforestation in Amazon. However, as Man have earlier mentioned about, some regions are getting hit harder than the others. So likewise, Tibetan Plateau, most of the high regions, high mountainous areas are getting hit harder than the other region as compared to other region. And so Tibetan Plateau at an average elevation of 4,500 meters above sea level are warming twice than the global average. And Tibetan Plateau is warming at 0.3 degrees Celsius, whereas other region is warming at 0.15 degrees Celsius. So what's happening have a profound impact and have consequences, not just the region, but on the entire plateau. So Tibetan Plateau is also often known as the water tower of Asia and also the third pole of the region because it holds the largest number of glaciers outside the North Pole and South Pole. And when the glaciers in North Pole and South Pole, when they melt, it goes into the ocean, and it contributes in the sea level rise. However, when the glaciers on the Tibetan Plateau, when it melts, it goes into the rivers, sustaining more than 1.9 billion people in Asia and throughout the Asia and Southeast Asian countries. So as we can see that Tibetan Plateau, when the water glaciers from this melt, it goes into the rivers, and so in most of the Asian major rivers have its source in Tibet. Like what's important rivers like in India, like Brahmaputra, Indus, Satluj, all these rivers have its source in Tibet. And right from Pakistan to India, Bangladesh, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, all these countries are heavily dependent on rivers that come from Tibet. So even China, all these two major rivers of China, Yangtze and Yellow, it has its source in Tibet. So this region, it provides water to almost 1.9 billion people, which is nearly a quarter of the world's population. And now here, why this matters. Fresh water, as we know that makes only 2.3% of the water on Earth, fresh water on Earth. It's water where we depend on for living, for industry, for our food, for our power, to power our industries. So we simply cannot use the salt water in agriculture or in any of the industries. So we are heavily dependent on these fresh water resources. So Tibet is much more than just a remote mountainous region. It is the water tower of Asia. So what happened in Tibet doesn't stay in Tibet. It flows down to downstream countries, sustaining billions of lives and countless ecosystems. So protecting Tibet means protecting the water security of huge portion of the world. That is why the health of this region matters to all of us. So talking about the climate change, we can see that the Tibetan Plateau is warming up twice. And if you look at this graph, you can see that the average temperature changes in Tibetan over the last century And this is a clear and steady rise in the temperature across the region. That's a 0 degree line, you can see that. And that's the critical threshold where ice is being turned into the water. And these temperature cross, when this temperature crosses the cryosphere, the frozen water systems, they start losing its stability. This means that they can no longer effectively regulate water supplies, putting the entire region at risk. So by now, you all have already heard about the glaciers melting worldwide, and also it is especially very important and urgent in Tibetan Plateau and the Himalayan region. Because like recently, there's an intergovernmental organization based in Nepal, IC-MODE. They have released a report. It states that even if the global warming is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the most ambitious goal set at the Paris Agreement, we could still lose 1/3 of the glaciers in the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region, especially Tibet, by the year 2100. So to put into this perspective, look at this two photos of the Rongbuk glaciers near the Mount Everest. And they were taken 88 years apart. And the difference is striking. And the glaciers has retreated dramatically. And as the ice melt, there's a new lake which are formed where used to be only ice. And now the rapid melting glaciers threaten the freshwater supplies to the millions of people downstream, and it impacts the ecosystems as well as agriculture and the livelihood. So this is a stark reminder that even a small increase in the temperature have a big consequences here in the Himalayan and the Tibetan Plateau. So as the glaciers melt, more and more water, it collects into newly formed lakes. So over the last 50 years, the number of lakes in Tibetan Plateau have increased. Earlier, in 1960s, there used to be only 1,081 lakes with more than 100 square kilometer. However, the number of lakes have increased from 1,000 to 1,236. So these are clear example of the increasing number of lakes due to the glaciers melting. So this is a selling tool. Earlier, it used to be the number 2. However, over the recent years, this lake have expanded and became the biggest salt lake in the Tibetan Autonomous Region. So now, you can see that in the first photo was taken in 2003, and another, sorry, I have not mentioned the year. This is a stark difference in 2002 and 3 and 2004. And you can see that the selling tool, it has overcome and overflow the area and gone into the another lakes nearby, and it has expanded, and there's a new lake which were formed in the areas. And moreover, as we see that there's a permafrost distribution across the Tibet, and permafrost is the main source of the water for the grasslands. As we know that majority of almost 80% of Tibetan Plateau is grassland. However, when these permafrost degrade, and when these permafrost thawing happened, there's a degradation, land degradation happening, and which led to the desertification. So here we can see that there's a permafrost distribution map, which was first one in 1960s, and with the deep blue indicating that cold and stable permafrost, and the red showing areas that are already thawing. And fast forward to 2000, and the thawing had dramatically increased. So permafrost is destabilized across the region. And permafrost, it plays a very important role in organizing the water and distribute the river throughout the plateau. And it acts like a floor to hold the water and to redistribute water, sustaining the ecosystem. As the temperature rises and the glaciers melt, the permafrost is also degrading. So these all lead to the desertification in Tibet, and the grasslands are drying and it is turning into deserts. So threatening both local environment and the people who are dependent on them. So this is a picture taken by Yang Yong. He is a glaciologist, and he have revisited the area source of the 3 great rivers of Yangtze, Yellow, and Mekong. So he have found out that there's a seasonal dry out of the region. So and he have written widely on these issues. And especially the reason for this kind of degradation is because of the climate change. However, the Chinese government, what they are doing is they are blaming on the Tibetan nomads. So government policies, they are mainly focusing on blaming the Tibetan traditional grazing practices of land degradation. So as a result, they lead to the nomads communities who have been sustainably managed these lands were forcefully relocated. So their ancestral grazing land, which are often now converted into national park. So this led to the limited access to the Tibetans and disrupting their way of life. So these policies have raised serious concern about the fairness and effectiveness of the conservation efforts, and that exclude the very own Tibetan people, Tibetan nomads, who are the regional original stewards. So you can see that I have bring out in one case study in Sangchen National Park. Sangchen is a source of the three rivers, Yangtze, Mekong, and Yellow rivers. So here in Sangchen National Park, it was first created in 2003, and this covered the whole of the source of the Yangtze, Yellow, and Mekong. However, this area, as we can see, that it is almost 123,000 square kilometer, which is almost the size of the England. So these area have been designated as a national park. So the Chinese government, they says that they aim to protect the source of the river and also the grassland, alpine grassland, and glaciers and wetland and the biodiversity. However, but at what cost? It came with a human cost. Through the mass relocation of nomadic families, there were around 60,000 Tibetans who were forcefully removed from their land under the name as the ecological migration. And these people, they have lost their land, their herd, and their purposes. So these ecological migration have led to the displacement of the Tibetan nomads, especially in county like Mata County, which is one part of the Sangchen National Nature Reserve Park. So a policy was launched in 2003 where they aim to reducing the grazing pasture and restore the degraded land. So they have, from 2003 to 2008, they have removed around 2,334 people from the area, and they were made to move into the relocated and move into the brick house with a wall compound. As you can see that in the picture, where the people, they need to take permission from the government official to go out and to come inside the compound. So they have made this nomadic grassland life into more sedentary lifestyle. So in a structured house with a dramatic change intended to protect the fragile ecosystem. However, it also marks with a major transition in these communities' life and interact with their environment. So this is not just a relocation, it was more of cultural rupture. There was a huge socio-economic impact. These nomads resettled from their traditional grassland have faced their severe crisis and challenges to their livelihood, identity, and adaptation. So resettlements, although they have slightly improved their housing, education, and healthcare, but many reports, scientific reports done by the Chinese scientists themselves, they have come up with a report saying that there's a decline in overall living standard, and also there's a basic needs now cost money, unlike when they used to live with their livestock. So most of them, they have sold their herds, homes, and now living off with the unstable and low-paying job. So it was an interview conducted by Fortune Do in 2009 with Mr. Dawa. And as you can read, right, with the time constraint, I will not go through this. So these Tibetan nomads, they are also facing identity crisis. So most of them, they have lose their status as identity as a herder or nomads. So and they are also neither gain a full urban citizenship. So many have experienced marginalization and culture shock in this new environment. And they are also facing the problem with adapting to the urban lifestyle. So many of them, they have lacked a modern education, especially many of them, they don't speak the Chinese language. So they have struggle with a simple task and also face rising social problems. So there's a increasing number of crimes and a loss of traditional values. And moreover, there's also a problem of overcrowded in the housing, and new families, they often cannot get their own new homes. So whatever the Chinese government, when they have moved to the new relocation, whatever the Chinese government have given, they need to accommodate in these houses. So these are the some of the ecological risk settlements that disturb the livelihood, culture, and stability. And these policies must better support economic opportunity, culture identity, and true adaptation. So there are many research and local knowledge. They reveal that the vital truth. Simply banning grazing is not the answer to restore Tibetan grasslands. There are many scientific research which in fact show that grazing bans have failed to restore the grasslands, and also often leaving this abandoned land which are vulnerable to degradation, and because of the poor management and the lack of oversight, it further degraded. So what studies and herders tell us is that moderate and rotational grazing is essential. So it supports soil health, promotes biodiversity, and help control the spread of shrubs, which are main causes of degraded grasslands under the warming conditions. So Tibetan nomads is not just a resident of these landscapes. They are the vital stewards, and their century-old practices maintain ecological balance and biodiversity. So removing Tibetan nomads, this disturbs the balance, leading to ecological decline, loss of invaluable traditional knowledge, and the breakdown of spiritual and community ties. So in short, sustainable grazing is and guided by the local knowledge is key to restoring and protecting these fragile ecosystems. So let me conclude with a critical reminder that Tibetan nomads is not just a resident of these highland grasses. They are long-standing custodian of one of the most fragile ecosystem, and their traditional practice and sustain biodiversity and supported ecological balance of centuries. So we must promote policies that are not only specifically sounded, but also deeply rooted in cultural knowledge. So these nomads, Tibetan nomads, must be empowered, not displaced, and recognized not as an obstacle, but as a partner in conservation. So finally, let's not forget that Tibet, often called as the third pole, and water tower of Asia plays a crucial role in regulating the global climate. So what happens there affects every one of us. So I urge, whether as a policymakers or scientists or advocates or common citizens, we must support these indigenous rights and champion inclusive conservation and work to ensure Tibetan nomads have seats at the table. The future of this ecosystem and our planets are dependent on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parmo, for a wonderful presentation on the Tibetan Plateau, which is certainly a distant land, but very, very important, very critical, as you said, the source of all the rivers. So whatever happens there in terms of ecological changes is bound to affect all of us. And this is where the issue of interconnectedness or dependent origination comes in. Sitting here in Delhi and the rest of India and even in the Southeast Asian countries, very few people probably would know the dynamics of the conditions in Tibet. But the fact is that whatever happens there, adversely or negatively, is bound to impact all of this population. Thank you very much. And also, you mentioned about the permafrost aspect, which is basically these are permanently frozen landmass. And they suppress a lot of greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide, etc. So when they start melting, these sort of gases are released, and they affect the climate, which in turn sort of affects the plateau. So it's a vicious cycle, which goes on, and obviously the government has to take care of it. She's just mentioned about the Chinese approach to this whole issue. We won't get into it, but thank you very much. We will now go to the last speaker, Dr. Stanzin Chostak. He'll speak on rights of nature in the Anthropocene, a jurisprudential appraisal. That's a difficult topic to even pronounce. So, just a request that we keep it as crisp as possible. We are delayed by an hour or so. Thank you.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Respected Venerable Geshe Durje Damdullah and Chief Guest Ranjana Ma'am and Professor Abhijit Haldarji and other Mr. Sharan and other speakers and Dr. Renuka Singh Ma'am also and the August gathering today. So I considered it as an honor and privilege to speak on a very important topic, and this is mainly from the viewpoint of law. But then the previous speakers who have spoken about, starting from the crime against nature towards, the ecological values in the Dhammapada, and also the biodiversity laws, right? And the glaciers, okay? So mine is a jurisprudential approach because, as you must have heard about what the writer Amitav Ghosh has written, that the climate crisis is not only a crisis in the, climate sense, but it is also a crisis of imagination, which even Albert Einstein has talked about, in the sense that he said that knowledge is limited, but imagination is much more important than knowledge, because imagination encircles the world. So with such a gigantic sort of problems facing the humanity at large, we need to kind of come up with a new kind of legal arrangement. We need to come up with new kind of social arrangement, of which the legal system is one, right? And no matter how much we, in a philosophical sense, elaborate upon, but ultimately it has to translate into real administrative implementation, enforcement, and application, right? So in that sense, now how do we go about it? How we, walk the talk in that sense? So the legal arrangement that I'm talking about is that, for example, just on the 28th of this month, the previous month, May, the whole glacier fell in a Swiss city of Blatten. The whole glacier crumbled down. It was there for hundreds of years. Whole village was wiped out. Luckily, it was evacuated in advance, right? So this takes us to a very pertinent question about what about, even though it is something like unthinkable in a way, but imaginative though, what about granting legal status to glaciers? The glaciers, in Tibet, or what about granting a legal status to the, cheetah, or for that matter, any other, natural components, right? So, His Holiness is always in line with his upcoming, 90th birthday. So it is also should be a resolution to, espouse the causes that he stood for, and all his four commitments has an environmental component to it. A promotion of human values, environmental values both in the ecocentric sense and the anthropocentric sense, and religious harmony, how religious through religion can act as a link to solve, we have all these Assisi summit and so many things happening where faith leaders gather to solve these the problem that we are facing. So then preservation of Tibet's spiritual heritage, of which mountains and deities, all these were revered like anything, and which has a now modern day implications, and protection of environment. So these and when he spoke about on the Rio Earth Summit, the first one of the largest gathering where almost 170 nations participated, of which 100 were represented by the head of states. So you can simply read, and I won't take much time, but he kind of came up with this concept of universal responsibility as a as a panacea, universal responsibility as a solution in terms of the equitable use of resources, and universal responsibility also in terms of taking the future generations into account, right? So we have one judgment by the International Court of Justice, which was given by Vice President Justice Veera Mantra, and he had a separate opinion in the Gapchikevo Nagamoro case, which dealt with the Danube River ke paas jo hai, there was a dam construction has to be done, and they were, between Hungary and Czech, there was a conflict, etc. So in that, he has extended this legal concept of sic utere tuut alienum, which is a Latin maxim, which means that use your property in such a way as not to hurt others. So this last line, alienum, stands for others. And these others, he includes through judicial interpretation, saying that it also includes the other species. It also has a larger ambit in the sense of including the future generations, right? So at the legal front also, many steps were also taken to develop a ecocentric point of view. So now this slideshow is simply as a reference point. So coming to the the environmental values. Now, how do we, like Geshe has talked about, only if somebody has to be dependent on you and serves your purpose, then only you will help that person. So, these environmental values, in the words of the Nobel laureate Amartya Sen, he says that, environmental values, of course, we have to understand the environmental values when from the parameters of how it impacts human lives. Of course, yes. Does it improve our standard of living, or does it provide us more opportunities, right? So from that count, environmental value, the value of environment could be could be better understood. But he says that, for example, like for example, if cheetah is lost, for example, it becomes extinct. Now, does the extinction of cheetah directly impacts our life? The answer is, like, simply speaking, no. In sense of our standard of living, or this thing, or a great Indian bustard, or a Ridley turtle, or a snow leopard in Ladakh getting extinct, does it impact our life? No, it does not in the direct sense of the term. But then he says that when we value, environmental value should move beyond, our serving our or impacting our standard of life, in the sense that, and he quotes, in the sense that it should also be inclusive of the other species. And he quotes the Lord Buddha, and in which he makes an argument in the Sutta Nipata, which is part of the Khuddaka Nikayas, in which Gautama Buddha argues that, we have a better sense of responsibility towards others, because we are enormously powerful than the other species. So that gives us a better sense of responsibility towards other, and this better sense of responsibility towards others now should also translate into better to do something, because coming from this asymmetry of power, because we are more powerful, so we have a more responsibility towards the other species, right? And this asymmetry of power gives us with a sense of value, could flow out, and also coming out from the fiduciary responsibility.
Fiduciary responsibility means a responsibility of concern towards the other species. Okay. So, so he says that irrespective of this thing, now my main premises for today is trying to understand how rights are to be understood, and how can we try to have a better understanding of rights. So rights, as we usually know, is a entitlement, and which we can enforce against another person in the normal parlance, right? That is the meaning of the conventional understanding of rights. And the bearer of the rights or the holder of rights are usually, they are usually human beings. The bearer of the rights or the holder of rights are usually human beings, and we claim it against another. So right could be legal if it is recognized by the legal framework. It could be moral. It is if that right is coming from an enlightened moral principle as such. Okay, but I'll just restrict more to the right aspect. So a presence of right in a person implies a presence of a correlative duty in the other person, right? So now this is known as jural relations, and I'll restrict myself to right and duty only, right, because that is more relevant in our context. Now, it is easy to relate rights with living beings, like human beings, but what if I say that a glacier has a right? So some people might be skeptical about it, so now we have to my intention is to explore and try to understand what it takes to be a holder or possessor of right in a legal sense. Okay, so we can simply rule out saying that a glacier does not have a right not because it is a morally inferior distinct compared to sentient human beings, right? But it is practically a little difficult for the glacier to claim right on its own, So this sort of a limitation simply makes us to rule out these natural entities as a holder of rights. Okay, now we have to explore from this point of view that and it is very close to what you call legal personality, because to be a holder of right means legal personality, and a legal personality could be other than a human being, right? So a legal personality could be other than a human being. So it could be a glacier, it could be the mountains. Legal personality could also be attributed to animals, right? So what I'll do next is, in the next part of my presentation, I'll just try to, taking a cue from legal philosophers, I'll try to understand how, through the exploration of animal rights, we can understand whether we can attribute rights to other environmental entities or not. Okay, because because it has been the most, philosophers have debated animal rights for a long time. Okay, and once we understand, and I put it under inverted commas, what is at issue, underlying issue, what is that issue when we talk about rights in terms of animals, then we might get a certain clue, we might get a certain key as to whether rights could be attributed to other, non-human being or entities, etc., etc. Okay, thank you. So now, as far as animal, I think all of us are aware that there are anti-criminal, cruelty against animal laws, 1962 in India. We have also so many legislations which I'll not mention, but which imposes a correlative duty on us, that you cannot cruelly treat the animal. You cannot be violent towards the animal. Now, the next jurisprudential question is, does that, and we are being taught that we need to be kind and human towards animal. Now, and it's not the same thing as saying that, does the animal have a right, as a matter of right, that it can expect kind treatments from us? Is little different in a very subtle sense from saying that we owe a duty towards animal not to be cruel under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, etc., etc. Okay. Now, let me then further move, which is the next. We rule out that animal have rights. We rule out animal have. So first, I'll just bring before your kind attention that some philosophers or legal philosophers in that sense, they deny that animals can have any rights. Okay. First of all, they say that they are incapable of kind of claiming their rights, and animal cannot have duties. Now, animal cannot have duties because they are, they attribute like, that they are very inflexible, they are very inadaptable, they don't have these, they cannot be instructed with responsibility, they cannot be reasoned out, they cannot be reasoned out, so therefore they cannot enter into contract, agreement, etc., etc. And therefore, we say that they are not, क्योंकि breach नहीं होगा, obligations का breach नहीं होगा, so उस sense में जो है उनका कोई duty नहीं बनता है, so duty कर ही नहीं सकता है. So the point is, does this kind of intellectual, sort of incompetency disqualifies the animals from also claiming rights? And the answer is, in a way, a resounding no, because they just simply give the example of a trustee. If somebody has willed some money to a trustee, to look after a trustee looking after animal welfare, okay, then the question of the right of inheritance of the animal comes into picture. And God forbid, if the trustee, embezzles the animal's amount, the money, then some proxy, some agent, attorney, or whosoever might be interested in the welfare of the animal, they could be speaking for the animal. They could be speaking for the welfare of the animals. Okay. So these are some of the things. And besides that, now you have like, the intellectual incompetency of the animals. Now, first limitation is that they say that animals cannot put the law into motion. They cannot approach the court. They don't have a sense of what is right and wrong, etc. That is a easily understandable thing, but the question is, so does infant, so does a minor, so does a legally incompetent person, that means a person of unsound mind. They cannot even, understand the niceties of law, the nuances of law, but still someone can represent as an agent. Someone can represent attorneys, does that, trustees does that, right? Or anybody interested in this thing. So the question of the principal agent comes into picture. In law, as you know, there's a principal and agent, somewhat on the lines of master, servant, etc. And usually, the agent is bound by the principals. Kindly give me 5 minutes more. So, bound by the principal's instructions. Okay. So, even though we know that animals cannot instruct and all this thing, but there's a concept of passive, they can be a passive principal, and we can be a active, agent. We can be an agent, and for that, consent and all these things are not a prerequisite, right? Because usually the agent, like a lawyer, within the field of law, complete independence is given, a professional judgment, you do what you are good at, and I can, so there's a minimum sort of a control exercise on that, okay? Now, having said that, let us move to some other nuances of these particular topic, which is that now some, skeptics who are of the opinion that animals cannot have rights, they say that, in order to be able to have rights, one must possess interest. Okay, so one must possess interest. In order to have right, one must possess interest. So first of all, what it means is that animal is, in a legal sense, animal needs representation. And only those person can be represented who have an interest. An animal does not have an interest. So these are the skeptics who deny that animal can have any rights. Now interest is nothing but well-being, welfare, and all these things, Now, so if that is the question, so there's a legal corollary drawn. And some people say that because, kindly note that in law, as far as my limited knowledge is concerned, animals are somewhat treated on the lines of things, things like chattels and all these things. So animals are things, and a thing cannot be said to have an interest. So they give a very good example of, something like Taj Mahal. Okay, so they said that let's take the example of a Taj Mahal, Qutub Minar in Delhi for that matter. So they said that Taj Mahal, there's someone who maintains it under the relevant laws or this thing, who looks after it, right? And make sure that it doesn't get polluted and it is kept fit and fine, etc., etc. But the person who takes care is under duty, of course, to maintain and keep it fit and fine. But can we say that there's a correlative right vesting in that thing called Taj Mahal? In the sense that that person is simply discharging his official duty, to maintain or to keep it so that it is fit for the future generation, for the art lovers and for the, visitors, head of the states, or for that matter as a national heritage of, primary importance. So we are doing it, we are conserving the Taj for that sake, and not for the sake of Taj's own goodness, welfare, well-being, or for its good, etc., etc. Okay, because Taj is a thing, and the thing cannot be said to have an interest. So they say that only beings, those who have interest, are the fit candidate to be a holder of rights. So the counter argument which is given to this is that look, and one more thing before I come to the counter argument. So they said that then how can you say that a particular thing has interest or not? Like we have denied interest to Taj Mahal, and therefore we have denied rights to Taj Mahal on its own, as a matter of the person who is taking care is doing it for what other reasons, not for Taj Mahal's own well-being, to help Taj Mahal or to harm or to make it good. So that person, so here to be an interest holder, they say that it has to do with conative acts. So you need to have conation in order to be able to claim interest. So conations are like wish, unconscious drives, impulses, and you have aims, ambitions, aspirations, etc., etc. So then only if you have conation, then only you are capable of having rights, interest. So they usually say that interest should be compounded with the presence of conation. No doubt we don't rule out the presence of conations like appetites and this rudimentary purposes in higher animals, right? So that is one thing. Again, the trustee sort of a argument is given here, that if a trustee has to take care of the animal, okay, then it is not simply custodian in the strict sense of the term. It will be working for the welfare, for the well-being of the animal. So therefore the interest vest in that thing, so therefore we are kind of trying to refute the argument that the the mere legal incapacity to claim rights cannot be a ground to deny rights to this thing. And before I sum up, kindly sir, due respect to the chair, so uh, so there now they say that, then how can we say, now we have made a little bit of an argument saying that animal can have rights, they ought to be given rights, okay, but in actuality, in fact, and this is asking for a little bit of a higher threshold from us. They said that हमने काफी बातें कर लिया, but in actuality what it means for an animal to have a right, so they say that these things are given. First they say that if you are doing, you're respecting the rights of the animal because of obedience to the authority of law. Let's say, our Article 51A, capital A, small g, talks about, be compassionate to animal. And we take pride in the fact that Indian Constitution is a compassionate constitution, So, of course, it's an obedient duty. Fundamental duties under Article 48, capital A, also talks about all these things, Now, if we are doing it out of obedience to the law, then say that no, then it is not recognizing the rights of the animal in the real sense of the term, in fact, in actuality. So secondly, they say that if you're doing it, let's say, out of consideration for the sensibilities of animal lovers, because animal lovers, they cannot tolerate to see cruelty being meted out to this thing, right? So the affront which they may feel, by animals being meted with cruelty, then again they say that then in that case you are not recognizing the rights of the animal in the real sense of the term, okay. And thirdly, if you're doing it out of, as a matter of dictate of your conscience, that I must be morally good and kind and human to animals, then again say no, then what it takes to be to have and recognize rights in the actual sense as far as animals are concerned. They say that if you are taking care of the animal, and if you think that not taking care is wrong, if you don't take care, or if you're not kind and human to that animal, if you think that it is wrong, it is injustice to that animal, okay, and it is a little bit of a legal sort of a thing to it, then you can then we can actually say that once we really appreciate rights of the animal in the real sense of the term. Now so there are some now these are little theoretical in nature, this conceptual confusion regarding the rights of the animal, etc. So there were certain now next is the how we come to the actual jurisprudential in terms of judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court of India, where it has started recognizing, and I think we should take it as a beginning in a way, good starting point. It may not be a game changer in a day or two, but it's a good starting point that the court in various judgment, particularly the previous two are coming from the Uttarakhand High Court, right? So recognizing the river Ganga, the glaciers, and mainly the other spectrums and components of environment as a according them legal personality, in the sense that they have what in law we have this parent patria, which means father of the nation, which means a custodian. So the in the Uttarakhand Salim Ali and the this Miglani case, the Namami Ganga director, the chief secretary, the advocate general, they were appointed as a parent, the loco parenti. That means the human phase of this thing, and under which they can, discharge their duties.
And these are some of the major steps and development which has been taking place in the Indian environmental jurisprudence. But there are certain legal hurdles. They were faced with real legal hurdles, in the sense that in these judgments there were no exact clarification as to how we will go about, how will, because mainly the officials were appointed, there were no community participation. And this was happening parallelly with the development in New Zealand, when Wahanguni River was given legal recognition. The Maori tribes, they've been, for centuries they were fighting the, crown and all this thing. And the Wahanguni River was actually given a, a legal personality with their own sort of a ombudsman of a group of indigenous people who can speak and, look after the best interest of that river. It is the longest navigable rivers, coming from the central to the Tasman Sea in New Zealand. Okay. So it was coming on those things, but ours was never nevertheless a trailblazer in the Indian environmental jurisprudence sense. But theirs was, the distinction is that unke usme jo tha, it was backed by legislation, and many of you know it was backed by legislation, and they have all the institutional mechanisms in place, including community participation, to make the, actually implement and understand the juristic or legal personality of these rivers. Okay. And finally, I'm very grateful for the chair, and I don't want to come between you and the lunch also. So then finally, I might have missed it somewhere, but and many of you, all of us, are almost aware that the Indian Constitution takes pride in the fact that Article 21 of the Constitution has been interpreted in such a liberal way, creative expansionist this thing, that it has now become, from a negative rights against the state, it has started including every aspects of this thing, life, which makes it more livable, including the right to clean environment. And somebody was mentioning of the Bhutanese constitution, etc., etc. And there were two developments in 2008 and 10. First, to start with this thing, Ecuador, which came up with the specific rights of nature in chapter 7 from article 71 to 74 of 5, where they talked about the rights of Mother Nature, which they call Pachamama, to restore, to regenerate, and not to be, forging towards, looking for alternative, or maybe looking for practical ways of implementing the environmental laws, etc., etc. And finally, I would like to end by saying that the least that we can do, is to recognize the rights of this thing. And I would just like to read one judgment. It's an obiter. Obiter means a judgment which is not binding, but nevertheless it carries a very important, sort of this thing, which is given by the. Yeah, it's okay. Which is given by the, I can sum it up. So, which is given by Justice Douglas of the United States Supreme Court, when in the case of, what you call Sierra Club versus Morton, it's a 1972 case. So there, this Sierra Club is like NGO, Peace, Greenpeace, like etc. Sierra Club is an environmental group. So they protested. वहाँ पे स्कीइंग का रिजॉर्ट बना रहे थे वहाँ पे अल्पाइन या जो भी मीडोज वगैरह में, and they said that we don't want it to be spoiled, we don't need to be spoiled, we want to keep it for future generation, we need to keep it intact. But the Supreme Court has not accepted the plea of Sierra Club on the ground that you don't have a locus standi. Locus standi is a legal capability. It is something like cause of action which you have before the court of law. That means locus standi requires that you should be aggrieved. So he said that, okay, environment ko ho raha hai, aapko to kuch asar nahi hua na, you are not aggrieved, you are not hurt, So harm to environment will not be considered as a harm to you. And the law only entertains when a person is aggrieved, then only we entertain, So it was not heard on this procedural matter. In India, it is different because of the public interest litigation, which has opened doors for all kinds of litigations, including to social causes, labor laws, etc., etc. But the dissenting opinion of Justice Douglas is paramount here, because he says that द लॉगर या जो वहाँ पे नाव चला रहा है या वहाँ से कोई लाइवलीहुड का मैटर है, कोई फिशिंग वहाँ से कर रहा है, so they say that those who share a meaningful relationship with those components of nature like rivers and all this thing, they should be given legal status to be heard. They should be heard and they should be given locus standi or locus standing. Okay, so therefore so these even though they were inanimate objects like the alpine meadows and glaciers and all this thing, but this, they should not, before they are reduced to the rubbles of modern day technology and all this thing, we should listen to the voices of the voiceless. So I conclude here and with the quotation that every great beginning has a every great thing has a modest beginning. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Saab. I think this is an area which needs a lot of. I mean, this is a subject which will take long time because it's basically looking into a very abstract area, from the legal point of view, because you're talking about inanimate, rivers, animals, nature who cannot speak, who don't have a voice, and then to sort out their issues legally, obviously has to have a very comprehensive global norms, not just national norms, because rivers, when you're talking about rivers like the Danube River, it flows through several countries. Likewise, the Mekong, it flows through several countries. So when you have laws in place, I guess all the countries along the, just as an example, if you take the rivers, all the countries along these rivers and all the habitation have to be taken into consideration. Yeah. So like Mekong, for instance, the countries which the river flows through, they have something called the Mekong River Initiative. Okay, so they are very much interested in Mekong River's welfare. And I think to an extent you can have a look, probably they are looking at some legal norms together, the Mekong River Initiative, to set up some legal basis, to save and protect that river. So that if some country does something which is harmful, transboundary kind of pollution and all, so there is a bit of that in that. But excellent subject and an eye-opener. I frankly didn't know that there is this aspect which is in existence. I mean, nothing like it for people like, Madam here, Rishima. If animals get right to, be defended, it's a challenge. Again, the voiceless, like he said, voice for the voiceless. But thank you very much. But with your permission, what we'll do is we'll have to skip the question and answer. We already delayed by almost 1.5 hours, so quite delay. So Professor Saab, I think we have the right and the interest to have our lunch.
Yes,
Legally,
yes,
we have the right.
You also had a right to ask questions, but we surrender it.
At lunch you can always ask questions. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful session. We've gone from Tibet to, from the Dhammapada, starting from there, and then to, the wildlife aspect of Ridhima ji, and finally your legal aspect. Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Shri Abhijit Hardarji, for moderating the session, and to all our esteemed speakers for sharing your profound knowledge and insights. Now, I would like to kindly request Shri Abhijit Hardarji to do the honor of presenting the souvenirs and white scarf to our distinguished speakers. First, we have Mr. Rishikesh Sharanji. Next, we have Dr. Ridhima Solankaji. Next, we have Miss Dechin Pamula. Next, we have Dr. Stentin Chostagla. Thank you once again, Shri Abhijit Tardaji. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. We have concluded session number 1, and as of now, we'll be taking a recess for lunch break. And I would request all the participants to kindly ensure that we need to come back to the conference hall by 3:10 p.m. I request once again all the participants to kindly be back by 3:10 p.m. and the lunch will be served in the Magnolia Hall, and our staff will be standing on the way to lead you to the Magnolia Hall for lunch. Thank you very much, everyone.